Okay, I have a 2006 Chrysler Town & Country. We're going to be replacing this driver's fender here. Now, the cheapest option if you're going to be replacing one is, obviously going to the salvage yard and finding one the same color, and I just got lucky with this. I was thinking of putting a silver if I couldn't get close, but I actually found the same color. Don't know how close it's going to match, but we'll see. But it's definitely going to be better than what we got here. I was going to get a headlight, could not find one of them, so looks like we're going to be ordering that. And so we're just going to go through this. This one's kind of mangled up, as you can see. So I'll have some video here that'll have like some clips from the one in the salvage yard showing you some stuff that I wouldn't be able to show you on here. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I've got it on ramps right now, but we're going to just get it under some jack stands and get this tire over here on this driver's side off. So it's going to make it easier. So there's actually quite a few things that have to be removed to be able to get this fender off of here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, I've got some blocks and a jack stand. You want to try to have two forms of support if you can, just for safety. And you can see where I've got on the frame there. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got a 21. Of course, you'll have to pop your wheel cover off, and it's not a bad idea to break these loose before you take the weight off of the wheel. But anyway, I've got a 21 millimeter, and we're just going to go through and finish taking all of these loose, and we'll get this tire completely out of the way. It's just going to make it easier getting in here to our inner shroud and everything. Okay, with your wheel off, you can get in here and get to these screws. There's going to be these little Phillips head screws holding this flap, and that's the first thing we're going to do, is take those out of this front part of the fender. And then we come back here, we've got some here, we've got one here, we've got one right here. We're going to take those out. Now these are little like rubber, aluminum little rivet devices that they put in there. You just kind of break those off. They're like a one-time use, and then you'll just get you another little button like these here and put back in there, and it'll hold it in place. But we're just gonna basically just kind of break those off with a putty knife and pop those off. But once I get these, we're gonna get to work. I'll show you what I'm gonna use on these here to pull that out. And we're just gonna pull this inner fender well piece out of here. Okay, I was just popping those heads off these little rivets here, and we still got another. It's an 11 millimeter. We'll take that off here directly, but we've got that part loose. I'm just using this little pry bar. We're going to get up here, and I like to use this to get a hold of these buttons, just kind of get back behind them, because they really go in there a good ways, and just pull and pry on them. You see we've got this one, we got this one here, and then we've got like one up here, and then we've got one over here on this side, and then we've got another one right here. So there's nothing to them. We're just going to pop these off and just get these inner shrouds out of the way. So that's what we're going to do here now. Okay, and some of those may break off on you. I got a couple of them to pull out, but some of them may just break off on you. So you can get a whole kit with like 1,000 of these things, like I've seen online, for like $20. So it's a good idea. But you can see we got it all loose now. It's just kind of sitting there. We're just going to slip it up, and then it will all just kind of pop down. Now this, you'll note this also will separate. There's like a rivet right here, or a little button, but you can pop that out and separate these two pieces here, but there's really no need in doing that. Okay, and you can see we got all of our inner shroud out of the way now. This little piece is still attached. We've got a 11 millimeter We're just going to get in there with our extension, and we're going to get a hold of this. It's just a little metal nut that goes on there and just holds this plastic piece. We're just going to take that completely off. Okay, and there's all that little nut is. It's kind of a difficult thing to get a hold of sometimes. It wants to be difficult. And then we have this piece completely off now. Okay, and as we come under here where that piece was at, we can reveal the two 10 millimeters. And you can see the one on the right side there has the studs you'll need to use, and extended or a deep socket to get a hold of that. So we're going to go ahead and take both of those out at this point. Okay, so we'll go ahead. So I got a little deep 10 millimeter. Go ahead and take these, this lower part of this fender. You can see how it's just a little studded part. And we'll go ahead and get this side. And that's all there is to those. Okay, as we come up here, you'll have some sort of piece in here. You'll need to go ahead and take that down out of the way, and then we'll have another bolt up here. Okay, and there's our 10 millimeter bolt that just bolts it in to that. We'll go ahead and get that removed. I've already got it loosened up. And then that removes it from that flap. So we got the bottom, and we got this here. Okay, as you're looking up under here, you've got an 8 millimeter. If yours ain't bent up, it's going to be coming right through here once this shroud's out of the way. And also, if you look up here, there's another 8 millimeter right there. Now you can either take that headlight and get it from up in the front, or you can simply just go ahead and get it with an extension from right back here. But so you got this one, and then you got the one right up there going into the bumper. You got to get those loose. Okay, now that will pop loose, and then we come down here, we just got a couple of 10 millimeters right there to get with that out of the way. Okay, and yours may be a little more difficult than the other one I was showing you there, because it'll be mangled up, but there's the little 8 millimeter, and then you got the one screw coming from down under here. You just have to go ahead and pop this out. It'll pop out of there. So mine's mangled up a little bit, so it's a little more difficult, but the bumper itself is intact. And see, this just got ripped off. And another thing going on with mine is this got bent under here a little bit, so I'll need to pull this back out. And usually you can just get, usually this is thin enough you can pull it by hand, or you can just take a like a clamp or a crescent and tighten up on there and just bend it out to get it straight enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has a little bit of give for adjustment. You know, you just want to get it to looking good. You may not ever get it perfect again, but like I said, the only thing we got to do is just take these two out here, and then we'll have this part over here loose. Okay, so those are loose. Now we're going to go ahead and focus up here on the top ones. Okay, right now we're going to focus on removing this mirror, because we do have a hidden bolt underneath the mirror here. So we're going to go ahead and focus on this mirror. I'm going to be replacing this because it's broken here as well. So first thing we're going to need to do is open the door up. And as you can see, if we get on in here, let me show you the bolt. We've got a Torx right in there. If you can see that down there, it's kind of hidden. We're going to have to get in there and get that loose. Okay, so this is a T27 Torx. You'll probably need a little ratchet, depending on how tight it is. We're going to go ahead and completely take this first part off here, and then we'll focus on the upper ones there. We're going to go ahead and take that completely out. Okay, with that lower one out, we're going to come in here with a thin putty knife. We're going to get back behind carefully. We're going to pop this out right up here at this top part, there's a little bit of a clip right there. That's all we need to do. Now I'm going to go ahead and take another plastic tool. I'm going to give this a push from down here and start working this out. And all you got to do is just push this up, straight up. Let me show you from the back side here. Okay, and see, all I'm doing is pushing this straight up now. And then that just comes right off there. You see it just has the clip on that one side, and then the other one's just kind of slide down on there. So now we can go ahead and we can get to these other T27s. We've got one here, got one right here. So we'll go ahead and finish removing these. And these may be pretty tight, so you'll probably need to use a little ratchet. You can fold this out of your way. But you definitely, once you get down to that last screw, you'll want to get a hand on it. Now another thing about it, if you've got an electric controlled, first thing you're going to have to do is get in here and pop this pillar off, and I might as well go ahead and show you that, because you're going to have a connector. This one is actually a manual. Here's what those screws look like though. You can see this is loose now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take mine off. It's going to fall off. I don't have a wire on mine. Then you're probably going to have a connector that looks something like this. So the one I got, the replacement, this is all they had, so I had to get one of these. So you're going to have a connector, and it's going to run in through here. I'm going to show you on the inside here. Okay, if you come on the inside, all you do is pop this piece off. The other thing you have to get under is this up here. So you're going to have to pop this upper piece of this panel off and get to this wire up under here. So this snaps down as well, and it goes, once you get this popped up where you can get your hand under it, there's going to be a wire coming down, running over here by your speaker. Pull those bunch of wires up, and from there you just push it down, pull that connector out, and you'll just have to run your new one right through here. This one's a manual, so it didn't come with that. But if you run in that, you will have to carefully pop this up and disconnect that. Okay, now the easier option is, when you take this loose, is just to leave it hanging a little bit, or just pull it back or whatever, because you don't need to disconnect it. But if you want to set it aside, you'll have to, or you need to replace it. That's something you need to do. But in this case, I would just let it hang down, get to this 10mm right here. So we're going to go ahead and take that out next. Okay, so we're getting this one. So I've been using a 1/4 inch on most all these. They haven't been just terribly tight. So now that one's out. Okay, so I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to work on these along this panel. Now the tricky part about this is there is a 10mm that's back in here behind this hinge. Now there is a couple ways you can do this according to how much work you want to do, but the way that I'm going to show you, you see we got the hood, it's propped up at this point. We're going to go ahead and take this out right here. This is going through this cowl, and this is a T25 that's going into this. We're going to completely remove this screw right here, and that's going down into that fender. So we're going to go ahead, at this point we're going to go ahead and take this 10mm out. this 10mm out. This is just part of the hinge, by the way, and then we're going to take this one out right down here. So we're going to go ahead and start working on these. Okay, see, we got this one out, we got that one out, and that one. The only bolt we got's in the back of this. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just put something underneath this right here to kind of hold this a little bit. Okay, as you can see, I got some cardboard under here. Like I said, it's propped up. You definitely want to keep a hand on it and be safe, but this hood with that prop and with it attached to that side should be fine. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some marks on here with a marker. I'm just going to take and mark this, that, because I'm going to be taking these two loose, these 10mm, and I want to put this hood back on the same way that it came off. So, you know, chances are we could get it moved and it still may not be perfect. We're going to try to get it back as close as we can so we don't have to adjust it. All right, so we got us some marks where we can put it back right. So let's go ahead and take these 10mm out. Okay, and you can see as we're taking these out, we're going to be able to drop this down. And I'm going to show you the alternative, but it's a lot more work. But we'll briefly go over that. Okay, now you can see that we just dropped this down. Look right in there, we can see that 10mm right there. That's the one that's holding this hinge. This is just the hinge that's holding this. Now this, of course, would be tight, but I have it loosened up a little bit to show you. But there's a 10mm. We're going to take a 10mm ratchet wrench. We're going to go right in there, and we're going to take that out. And I'm also going to get a magnet, because if I don't, this 10mm is going to drop down and go back in there where it's going to be hard for us to get to. So we're going to get a magnet right before we get it completely loose, and we'll go ahead and start taking that out there. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm up in here with my ratchet wrench, and we're just loosening this up. And once I get it where it's just almost all the way loose, I'm going to get my magnet here. Get my little magnet. I'm going to come right in here and I'm going to catch it. So that's all I'm doing. Okay, and as you can see, I was able to go in there with that magnet and get that out of there. Okay, so this hinge is loose. We don't need to completely pull it out, but it will have to go back in there. Now at this point, we can just take, because everything is loose on the fender, we've got everything loose, we're just going to slide it forward a little bit. Now we're going to watch our hood, because it's going to try to move around a little bit. We want to keep it back up here, out of our way. Keep an eye on that. See, that's that little T25 that was going through this. So we've got this completely loose, and we're going to go ahead and just, at this point, wiggle it on down and lift it completely off. So we'll go ahead and just set this aside. We'll take a look at it. You can see that this got bent a little bit, but it's not real bad. We're going to take a crescent pipe wrench. We're going to pull this back around, and I'm going to kind of gauge about where it needs to be by setting my new fender on here as well. So I'm going to kind of do that, but all in all, nothing got damaged but the fender and the light. This here doesn't really matter because it's the inner apron. So regardless, as long as it's not out of place, it's not going to affect it. But here's a look at it with your fender off. So of course I'm going to have to get another headlight, but I'm going to have to order one. I could not find any headlights for in a caravan. Town and Country is going to be the same. So now we're going to go ahead and just get our other fender. We'll set it on here and just kind of gauge it and see how close it looks. So I'm just going to slip it up and over this, slide it back into place. Like I said, this is going to save you a lot of money. If you can go to a salvage yard and find you a fender, it's going to save you a lot of money than having to go and have it put another fender on, have it painted, have it matched, and all that. You know, everything that I spent with getting my mirror and everything, I was only like at $80 for this, so it's really cheap. The paint, if you were painting it yourself, would probably cost you that. Okay, and just to show you, I've just kind of got to get set in here, but if I pull this over into place, you can kind of see about how far I have to bend that piece. It's really bent down and over quite a bit, so I'm going to get a crescent wrench and just pull that around, and it's going to pull this way back out, and we're going to kind of get it back in a position where it needs to be. Okay, so what I've done is I've kind of bent this piece around and straightened it, etc. And kind of bolted everything up and just kind of got to look at it, because I'll never get this piece underneath here perfect. What I'm going to do is take a drill or a round file and just make this a little more slotted where I've got some slack, and then we will go ahead and get our bolts back in there, because we'll never get that perfect, and that's just the way it is when something's been wrecked a little bit. But you see, we got these special little divots here that's threaded, and I need to use those. So we're just going to slot this fender out a little bit here, so we've got a little bit of slack, and then we'll bolt it back up and see how it looks here. Okay, it's starting to look a lot better already, and we'll adjust everything out. I'm just loosely putting in screws at the moment. I've just kind of started up here, put one in here. I put this hinge back in here. We will have to get that magnet and get that one up there started. We'll probably try to get that one first. It's going to be the most difficult. I slotted these with my file, so now they're lining up. Said you never will get some things perfect. Now, if yours is completely messed up, then you're going to have to like bolt on a piece of metal and just use some bolts or something to get in there and hold this part. So the main thing is that it looks good once we get it together, but I know that everything's lining up. So we're loosely starting all our bolts. We'll get them all in up here first, and we'll loosely get them in here, down here, these two, and then we got the one there. We want to make sure everything is lining up before we tighten anything down. Okay, and one of the things you want to watch out for is you want to make sure you got this shifted enough where you got enough here where this is not going to be rubbing when we close the door. So we may have to, I've had to even take and slot the holes where I could shift it a little bit to be able to get it to line up. But we're going to go ahead. We've got our bolts in here, got our bolt in up there. We use the magnet to get that in. Got these started, none of them's tight. We've got these started. We've got these two here, and then we've got the stud and that one down there. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and try to lock them all down, and we're going to check the function of this door and make sure that it looks good, we're not rubbing or anything. Okay, we got our fender locked down, got our gap right. Like I said, you don't want your door rubbing over here, and it has to be just so we're going to go ahead. We've got marks here. We're going to line our hood back up and just put these back in at this point. Okay, and there we have it. As you see, back on our marks again. So now it is possible that we moved this out of adjustment, so if we did, we will adjust it again. So now we're going to go ahead and just put our little screw back in here. Hopefully we'll get it to line up with the fender piece here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and slip this back onto here. We've got the little 8mm nut that's going on to the end of this, and then we've got our little bolt that's coming up through here, and I need to get my little piece that fell out there that it screws into. Okay, I'm just kind of using this 1/4 inch long extension to get that one up there, and then the same for the one that I was tightening under here. I just used the extension. Okay, we're just putting this little air piece back in now that everything's tightened up. And don't forget about tightening this one in here. So we're just going to get this set back up into place. All right, now I think we'll go ahead and work on getting this Fender shroud here back up into place. Not a big deal, we just set it in. We've got a few screws and stuff to put back. Okay, if you just took this apart in one piece, it'll be easier setting it back. And there's the little push pins that were stuck in there. I wanted to get those out. And we're going to pop it back up into place and get our Phillips screws on the side here. Okay, we just set it back up behind the fender. Now you notice these little spots, those are threaded, if it'll focus, they're threaded into the shroud, and that's where those screws go. It's got a couple up here as well that are like threaded into the shroud itself, and it is not focusing on anything. So anyways, just set it back up here. We'll pop a couple more. I've got some extra push pins, so it's got to go back up and behind the fender though. Okay, I'm just putting these two screws here. Actually, I got my other little piece I need to slip on there, but it's got the little screw that goes on there. But you got the screws here that go, and then the ones in the front here as well. But we've got this popped up, and that's supposed to be behind right there. Okay, this piece has to go on for this bottom screw. It also slips over that. Now these things were broken, but this screw and that nut will hold this thing plenty tight. If worst case, we can put some more little tiny snaps in there. Okay, so we got that back on there. So we got our fender shroud back in. So we're going to go back up top now. We'll work on getting our mirror back on. Okay, I've got a wire on here. I'm just going to stuff that in. I don't need it. But I'm going to go ahead and get this thing locked back down. So this little piece, we'll get our screws lined up here on the top first, and then we'll get that lower one. Okay, now we got the door open slightly, and we're just going to get up here with an extension and get a hold of this lower one here if we can hold it straight enough. Now we'll go ahead and snug that one in. So we'll just kind of tighten them all at once. Got the top two in. Okay, so the mirror's tightened down. We'll just slip this back down on here. Just that simple. And once you get it down, and if you don't get that locked in, you'll have to pull it back up. It didn't go into place right. I'll just pop it right back up, because that has to go under that spot right there. And then you push this side down, and then you can see right there where it clips in. And it's locked in nice and tight. It looks a lot better than that other one for sure. Okay, at this point we're going to go ahead and just slip our wheel back on, torque these lugs down. Once we get it on the ground, 100 foot-pounds. Okay, so we got it on there. It looks a lot better. I got a little bit of gap here. I'm going to have to adjust by loosening that off and get that out, which anytime you move something. But other than that, it looks pretty good. So you're never going to find, in lighter colors of paint, you're never going to find a perfect match, you know, without actually having to blend it in and have it painted. But for the price, I'm happy with it. It looks a lot better than it did. The next project will be getting some headlights on here. So I couldn't find any of those. A little bit more difficult to find at the salvage yard. The hood's not just terrible. I think it'll look a lot better with some headlights on here though. I was going to talk for a minute about getting to this hard to get to 10mm down here. We had to take the hinge off stuff. The other way you can do that is by removing this shroud here. For that, you're going to have like a tie rod tool. You got a bolt here to pull that off of there. These are really stuck. I had to use a tie rod tool to do that. Let's see if I've got one handy to show you here. This right here is what I had to use to pop that off. You're going to need to get those off first. Then you got some T25s that run along in this. You got several of them. You get those off. Once the windshield wipers are off, pop that piece off. There's going to be some 13s holding this assembly under here. And there's a wire clip for the motor and stuff, and you got to pull all that out. There's also some 10mm nuts along through there. So if you absolutely can't get to that over there and can't get to it, you're going to have to remove this to be able to get to it. But hopefully you won't have that much trouble. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video on replacing this fender. We got the mirror replaced as well. It looks a lot better than it did before. The next video, then we're going to get some headlights on here, and I think it'll look a lot better up in the front. Got to see about finding some wheel covers, but I'm really happy with this fender. I know it's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty good for the amount of money that I've been out. So I'm happy with it, but I'm really happy to have this fender fixed and to have found even this color blue at all. So anyways, that's going to do it for the video. Like I said, not real difficult job, but a lot of things that have to be removed to be able to get this fender loose. So but it's definitely worth it. Go to the salvage yard, save yourself some money. So like I said, if you found the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and thanks for watching.